All right, y'all. Welcome to my weekly comics chat. Now, normally I do these live, but this one is pre-recorded because I had something going on this week during my regular live stream time. But I still wanted to come through with the video because remember, my weekly comics chat is about whatever caught my eye in fandom that week, but it's always like a million things going on. So I normally just pick one because everybody's still talking about Rachel Zegler. Lord have mercy, that child. That child does not understand that this is going to follow her for the rest of her life. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. What this video is about, let me put it on the screen, is because don't you hate it when somebody puts a title and a thumbnail and then you click on and then it doesn't, they don't even talk about what they said the title was. Okay, this isn't letting me post on this recording. Okay, well, anyway. This recording today is about Superman spoilers, maybe. Now, when I say Superman spoilers, maybe, I mean I'm going to go over a tweet that claims to lay out all the things that happen in the movie, but we have to take it all with a grain of salt because people aren't believing it. The problem is that it could be true. That's always a problem. It could be true, so we don't really know. We're not going to know until we see the film if it's actually true, but I'm going to go over whether or not it's true, whether or not we think it's true, and what we think are the spoilers. So before I do that, I have to say this. This is the third movie now. It's the third movie now where the writers and the director don't have the instinct for who Superman is and what type of story to tell with him. It's the third movie now. Okay? First, we had Superman Returns, and Brandon Routh was not the problem with that movie. Brandon Routh was hired to do a Chris Reeve impression, but he was not the problem with that movie. It was that everything that movie presented Superman to be, he is not. It's supposed to be a sequel to Superman 2 with Reeve and cutting out 3 and 4. The last thing he said was he was flying the flag back to the White House. And he said, "Good afternoon, Mr. President. Sorry I've been away so long. I won't let you down again." Those are the last words in the movie. The premise of Superman Returns is that right after that, he takes off. And he takes off for 5 years, and you don't tell nobody what he's doing, where he's going, including Lois. Lois. And then on top of that, they stuck together in Superman 2. Apparently, he got her pregnant. Because when Superman does come back, she has a child, and it's revealed later on in the movie that that child is part Kryptonian. Because he has conveniently manifesting powers. All that time, his powers didn't manifest until the plot needed him to, but whatever. You know what that means? That means, according to Superman's 2 Forget-O Kiss, Lois wouldn't have known who she got pregnant by. She would have just woke up one day, she was pregnant. So she hooked up with Richard real quick to make Richard think that was his kid. I mean, just... Does any of that sound like Superman? Does any of that sound like it has place in a Superman movie? Okay. And I know the Reeve movies were more Silver Age, but still. So there's Superman Returns, and, I probably should do a video on that because I have a lot to say on that, but I'm just kind of recapping now for the sake of this video. So there's Superman Returns, and then there's, of course, Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, which I just made a tweet about that, about how ridiculous that movie is. There's another word I want to use, but I don't know if it'll get my video censored by the YouTubes. But anyway, it's another R word. But that movie is so wrong because I said in that tweet, 50% of anything is instinct. You have to have the instincts for what it is that you're trying to do. Not just talent, not just effort. Half of it is instinct. Instinct cannot be taught or transferred. You're born with it. You either have it or you don't. That's why some people can play the piano at 5 years old. Some people took lessons for 10 years, still can't play the piano. Okay? Because it's not just a matter of talent, it's a matter of instinct. So, I mean, everything about Man of Steel was wrong as well. You know, Superman being dark and dour and working in the shadows, and then again, the costume was off. And then Jonathan Kent telling young Clark that maybe he should have let a school bus full of kids die to protect his secret. And then Jonathan Kent sacrificing himself and not allowing Clark to save him. Do you understand how short-sighted that is? What happens the next time when somebody's in danger and Clark is around? Now your father's dead for no reason, and you still have to make a choice to reveal yourself or not. Do not get me started. But anyway, yet another example of someone that does not have the right instincts about who Superman is as a character and what kind of movie he needs to be in and what kind of movie people want to see. So I said all that to tell you that when it comes to this new Superman movie coming out, this James Gunn movie, I already think it's going to be the same thing because I do not think that Gunn has the sensibilities to make a proper Superman movie. Why do I think that? Before we get into these potential possible maybe spoilers, why do I think that? Because the first trailer he showed us was Superman getting beat up, Superman lying in the snow, battered and bloody and bruised, having to call Krypto to drag him back to the fortress. Like we want to see a Man of Steel like that. That little version of Krypto, that's not Krypto. That's the wrong kind of dog. Also, okay, that costume. I tweeted about that this week too. I have tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and tried to make that costume work, and I can't. It still looks cheap. It looks like Velcro and velour and polyester, and maybe they're trying to take the lines from New 52 or whatever, but nope. That's what lets me know that Gunn does not have the instincts necessary to make a Superman movie. That and the fact this movie is already stuffed to the gills. It's already crowded. So I don't just mean with the regular supporting cast, because Lois, Perry, Jimmy, of course we have to have them, and Lex is in it. Of course, we expect that in a Superman movie, even if Lex is not the main villain. But I'm talking about the Justice League International. We got Guy Gardner. Of all the lanterns we could have, we got Guy Gardner. We got Hawkgirl. We got Metamorpho. We got Mr. Terrific. And it's ridiculous. And Nathan Fillion was born to play Hal Jordan, especially since they now have an older Hal Jordan on Lanterns anyway. Nathan Fillion was born to be Hal, and they said, nope, we're going to make him Guy. Just like Amy Adams was born to play Lana Lang. That woman is Lana Lang incarnate. Her look, her voice, her energy, everything, and they made her be Lois. Don't have the proper instincts. So this is the third movie where this is happening. Now, I hope I'm wrong. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not trying to say that I hope this movie tanks. I hope it's less, but based on the early feedback that's already coming in, it's divisive. It's a love it or hate it kind of thing. Because I'm sure it's going to be rife with Gunn's humor, because Gunn seems to make Guardians of the Galaxy over and over and over again. Suicide Squad, Creature Commandos, it's the same film, same type of humor, same thing over and over again. Okay? Not that a Superman movie can't be lighter humorous, because the Reeve movies certainly were, but it's the type of humor, and it's the frequency of humor, and all that different kind of stuff. So, so from the early screening videos that I saw, everybody's saying it's going to be kind of a love it or hate it kind of thing, which does not surprise me at all, because you have to be down with Gunn's brand and style of humor if you're going to get into this. Okay, so let's look at this tweet. Now, again, I know these are not confirmed spoilers. I know this is just something somebody put out there, but it's worth talking about if even one of them is true. Okay, so let me pull that up on the screen. All right, that should be on the screen now. All right. Let me see if I can blow that up because it's so tiny. I know that's hard to see. Right. So, of course, everything's changing size except the actual lettering. Okay, so we're just going to have to go with that. So, I know that's hard to read. So, I'll just read the stuff. So, apologize for that, but it doesn't look like I can get it any bigger. Okay. So, instead of reading this whole thing at once, I'm going to go through and comment as we go. Okay, it starts off copy pasting the unverified plot points over to this thread for the curious. It isn't a comprehensive plot summary from what I can tell. Superman is taken to the Fortress of Solitude to be healed by the robots that work there. So maybe that's the first scene that we see him getting beaten up. Nobody wants to see Superman getting beat up. I still don't know why people don't get that. I didn't want to see Lex Luthor beating up in Superman Returns. I really didn't want to see Batman doing what he did in Batman vs. Superman with the kryptonite stuff. Didn't want to see that. Okay, and here it is again. Lex Luthor and his team are introduced. They hate Superman and devise a plan to eliminate him, involving a partnership with the government of a foreign nation to take over a smaller country. A political metaphor: Luthor equal Elon Musk, corrupt country equal Russia, small country equal Ukraine. Now, that's another thing. If that's true, and they've introduced all these political lines and all this political commentary, see, comic books have always been political. And so I'm not going to try to make an argument against that because they've always been political. Okay, just go back and read anything from World War II. Comic books have always been political. That's not the issue. It's not the fact of politics in comics, it's the way you present it. If you are subtle, and maybe, subtly pointing at something and it's not blatant and beating you up over it and hitting you in the head. But when it's blatant and just out front like that, and you're talking about real life analogs in the movie, once again, that's polarizing. You know what I mean? People have the right to choose their own politics or not to be political at all. But when you're blatantly pushing a particular agenda or perspective on your audience, that's going to split them. That's just going to split them. What else did you think was going to happen? Seriously. Okay. All right. Now, at the Daily Planet, Jimmy Olsen behaves as expected, but with a twist. Girls obsessively fawn over him, and he can't escape their attention. Everybody knows what that is. For those of you that might not know what that is, that's just Revenge of the Nerds. That's somebody that has been called a nerd or a geek in life, and they didn't get the attention of the girls. So now they're writing a character that's, traditionally been nerdy and geeky. Now all of a sudden he's a chick magnet. That's what that is, in case you didn't know. Okay, remember, all this is grain of salt stuff. Grain of salt. Okay, Lois questions how Clark consistently gets interviews with Superman, creating some tension. Lois goes to her apartment at night and finds Clark there. It's revealed that they've been secretly dating for 3 months, and she knows he's Superman. Their tension is all part of a cute role play thing at work. Now that actually is kind of cool. Throwback to the old school days where Lois didn't know Clark was Superman because somehow a building full of reporters couldn't figure out that Clark was Superman. But in this movie, it seems that Gunn has made a point of making Clark's look very, very different from Superman's. So it's a little easier to get into our suspension of disbelief because they don't look exactly the same. But I like this idea that they're together and Lois knows what's going on, but they're making other people think that she doesn't know. I really like that. Okay, if that's true. In her living room, Lois complains about how Clark always is interviewing Superman. She playfully turns on her microphone to record him, starting as a cute game, or devolving into a long domestic argument about foreign policy and Superman's involvement. If that's true, that can go either way. I like the real world implications of if we're in an intimate relationship, we are, of course, going to talk about our political views. And of course, we're going to talk about what is Superman's role in a global conflict or national conflict. What should Superman do? I think that's a legit topic. But once again, it depends on how the dialogue goes. It depends on whether or not this is heavy handed, if it's trying to push a certain agenda. Because I think it's a legit question if you're trying to somewhat ground it in the real world. What does Superman do when there's conflict in the nations? And, does he automatically fight for American interests? Does he fight for his own interests? Does he stay out of it? Those are interesting questions. So depending on how this is framed, if this is true, that could go either way. But if it's, again, heavy-handed, too over the top. Lex Luthor releases monsters into the city to fight Superman, who defeats them. The Justice Gang appears and helps in the fight. They are basically the Guardians of the Galaxy, and there it is. Out of all of them, I believe that one the most. Because that is consistently what Gunn writes. In every film that he does, he consistently writes Guardians of the Galaxy. Suicide Squad, Creature Commandos, all the same thing. A bunch of quirky, offbeat heroes with problems, and they're not the mainstream heroes. They're not the pretty people heroes, and they're jacked up in the head in some kind of way. Okay. At one point, Luthor enters the Fortress of Solitude. Now, right there, that already makes me mad. That got on my nerves in Superman 2, the Reeve movie, with Gene Hackman's Lex breaking into Fortress. That got on my nerves in Superman Returns, with Kevin Spacey's Lex getting in the Fortress, and it's getting on my nerves now if that's true. Why doesn't Superman, see in the comics, old school Superman had a door with a key in front of it, and the key was so heavy only he could lift it. New school Superman had the entrance to the fortress underwater, so he had to dive deep down underneath the fortress and come back up. But Lex always been able to get into the fortress and program the technology. I can't, especially not in 2025. I cannot with that. It ought to be fingerprinted to Superman's fingerprints. It ought to be voice coded to Superman's voice code. And in the comics, Superman has robots that guard the fortress when he's gone. And I think they're here. I think they are in this movie. But why don't they stop Lex from entering? I can't stand this. I can't stand it. And if Superman is friends with Batman in Gunn's DCU, then Batman would have told him you need to beef up your security. How many times are you going to let your enemies break into your fortress before you realize you need to do something different? So I hope this one isn't true. This is one of my pet peeves with Superman in the movies. How Lex just walked into the fortress and can command the technology. How? How is Lex able to command Kryptonian technology when it should be a retina print required, fingerprints, just voice code? We have all that tech now. We've had that for a while. Anyway, at one point, Luthor enters the Fortress of Solitude, uncorrupts Jor-El's messages about Superman being sent to conquer the world and broadcast them worldwide. The messages turn humanity against Superman, making him an outcast. Now, this, to me, is getting right up there. It's getting right up there with that whole Jonathan Kent telling Superman maybe he should let the kids die, the school bus full of kids die. Maybe he should let them die to keep a secret. This is right up there with that as far as I'm concerned. Okay? Because in the Reeve movies, and generally speaking, Jor-El does not send Kal-El to Earth to be a conqueror, generally speaking. I know there's been some Elseworld stories like that, and I know there's been a few attempts at a retcon, and I also know every other Kryptonian that comes to Earth tries to conquer, including Kara. Zod and, Feora and everybody that comes to Earth as a Kryptonian and sees the powers they have under the Yellow Sun to try to conquer. And that's what separates Superman Kal-El from the rest of them, is that he tries to help. Now, people will say that's because of the Kents. That's, comes from the lore. It wasn't always that way. It didn't start out that way. That didn't get introduced until really the Superboy years. When they did the Superboy comics, that's when the Kents kind of became prominent, and then it got written into the mythology that it was their influence that made Superman want to fight crime and be a force for good. But he actually was created by Siegel and Schuster to be a champion of the oppressed from the beginning. But either way is cool. If he's a champion of the oppressed because he's a good person, if has Midwestern values because of the influence of the Kents, either way, he's still a good person, still trying to fight for what he believes is right. But this thing about how his father, see, this reminds me of Smallville. And this is one of the things I hated most about Smallville. Jor-El was absolutely antagonistic against his son. Jor-El in Smallville found every reason he could to punish Clark. Every reason he could to try to take something away from Clark. Make Clark pay for every mistake. It was awful. He was against his own son, and he punished him at every turn. And so if this is the case, they're also now making Jor-El a negative figure and whatnot. And I'm just like, we don't need any more of that. What's wrong with the Marlon Brando speech? What's wrong with the Marlon Brando perspective that I sent you to Earth to give you those powers, to make you be a champion and a beacon of light? Because I believe in humanity. They only lack the light to show the way. That's why I've sent them you, my only son. When Superman saves the airplane and Superman returns, he comes out after he saved the airplane and everybody cheers because they're so happy to have him back. What's wrong with that? So if this is true, once again, that's already getting on my nerves that Lex can decode Kryptonian messages, that Jor-El sent Kal-El to Earth to take it over, and now the whole world gonna see that, now they hate him and whatnot. Somebody ought to say, hopefully it's Lord, somebody ought to say, even if that's true, that's not what he did. Even if that was his original mission or his father's original intent, Superman made a different choice. Anyway, moving on. At one point, Luthor enters no, okay, I read that. Superman, shunned by the world, returns to his human family, the Kents. Now, my question there is, do people know his identity? Do people know that Clark Kent is Superman, or does he reveal that Clark Kent is Superman, or what's going on there? So Superman, shunned by the world, returns to his human family, and we saw that in the trailer where Superman's talking to Pa Kent. Lex Luthor has access to a pocket universe where he traps people he hates, including ex-girlfriends. He violently beats Krypto and takes him to this universe. Somehow Superman ends up trapped there too. I love Krypto. I don't want to see him get beaten up either. And he must use some green kryptonite or some red sun radiation to take away Krypto's powers, and then he beats him. I don't want to see that. You really want to see Krypto getting beat by Luthor? You want to see that? I got no desire to see that. Zero. Okay? And then somehow Superman gets trapped. Okay. Lois and the Justice Gang discover Superman's location in the pocket universe through Jimmy, who had been secretly sexting Luthor's girlfriend. What? Okay. She's obsessed with Superman, and her provocative photos unintentionally reveal confidential data. What? Do we really need that in the Superman movie? Seriously? Is that family friendly? Is that what the family needs to see? Jimmy Olsen, sexting Luthor's girlfriend. Do we really need to see that? Have you noticed that all the movies have some form of cuckolding in them? That they must always cuck the male characters now? I'm tired of that. I can't make you understand how tired of that I am. But anyway. Superman eventually escapes the pocket universe by flying through pixelated lava, which looks like Minecraft. Really? Superman saves some people and fights the foreign army, earning forgiveness from others. Just like that, the best action scene, as good as the hallway scene in the Guardians of the Galaxy, involves Mr. Terrific. Okay. Superman learns about Luthor's plans with the foreign nation. He informs the government, but Luthor counters by revealing he cloned Superman. Now that's Ultraman or Bizarro or both. That's the guy we saw in the trailer with the Doomsday suit on with the big U. So that's Ultraman who turns into Bizarro, probably when he takes the costume off. You can see him beginning to decay or whatever. So a fight ensues between Superman and his clone, who shares his DNA and could access the Fortress of Solitude. Okay. Maybe that's how Luthor does it. That would make a little bit more sense. Superman defeats the clone and Luthor is taken to jail. Superman returns to the Fortress of Solitude, where a drunk sorority version of Supergirl appears to reclaim Crypto, her dog. She had asked Superman to watch him for the week. That's a tease for a Woman of Tomorrow. So if you haven't read the Tom King novel, Woman of Tomorrow, with Supergirl, the first scene in that is Supergirl goes to a solar system with a red sun so she can get drunk. Because she can't get drunk on the yellow sun and she's turning 21. So she wants to get lit. Like she's a sorority girl. So if she's all, hungover and tousled and look like she got blackout drunk and I don't want to see Kara like that. I don't want to see Kara no better than just a regular character, just a regular person. The Kryptonians are supposed to be better than that. But all Kara wants to do is get drunk. Okay. Superman sits back, asks to see his family again, but instead of Jor-El, it's his human family. So now the movie's bashing Jor-El, saying that, Jor-El's dictatorship edict for Superman was real and it sticks, and now he's not his dad anymore. Is that what they're saying? So once again, all this stuff has to be taken with a grain of salt because there's no guarantee that any of this is real. But if it is, the only part that I like from it was Lois and Clark being together, knowing the secret and pretending that they don't in public. That's smart for a lot of different reasons. Everything else I read, that stuff is ridiculous. That's not going to be a Superman movie. So if you like that kind of stuff, if you're one of the people that, thinks that The Last Jedi was right, that Rian Johnson coming in and screwing up everything to subvert expectations, tearing up the legacy, that's what the franchise needed, then you'll probably love this. If you realize that we need a movie where Superman stays Superman and he can still fight his enemies, and by the way, Lex Luthor is not his only enemy. I do like Ultraman. I do like Bizarro. We still haven't had Brainiac anywhere, but in the cartoon, the animated series, and on the sci-fi TV series Krypton. Be nice if we finally got Brainiac. Now Superman 3, that wasn't Brainiac. That was a Robo Woman, and she was scary as a mug. Everybody that saw that got scary memories of Superman 3. But anyway, so like I said, it remains to be seen. I know we haven't seen the movie yet. I have people commenting, on my Twitter feed, maybe we should chill about a movie we haven't seen yet. I know that. I get that. Okay, but maybe the movie should be good. Maybe the movie shouldn't be about subverting expectations. Maybe the movie shouldn't be about destroying everything that Superman has meant. Okay? Maybe the movie should, for once, honor what Superman has been about all this time. Now, looking at these tweets here, we got a couple of screenshots from the 5-minute preview. So let me pull that up so I can show you that. And it's a better look at the Superman suit. And in this shot, it looks better. So like I said, I'm hoping, very much hoping, that the suit looks better in the film. In this shot, it does. Okay. So here's this tweet by DC Comics fanboy, but I was told the suit is too baggy. And all of the pictures we've seen so far, it is kind of baggy, but look at that. That actually looks pretty good. So that's what I'm saying. If the movie actually makes it better, fine. Okay, so this looks like Superman recovering from the beating he got, being attended to by his robots, and getting some direct sunlight and getting some other treatments so he can be healed. Okay? So if the suit looks like that, great. I got no problem with that. That'll be awesome. All right. So we've got that. They said they had a 5-minute preview. I'm really, really, really not interested in the whole crypto dragging him back to the fortress kind of thing. I just really not interested in that, So, okay, now here's an interesting clip. It looks like he's in pain when the robots are recharging him. So let's look at that. So it's brief, but if you can see that there, it looks very much like when they're putting him in the sunlight, either he's hurting from his wounds or maybe that concentration of sunlight is, getting to him. So I don't know. I don't know. They could have used a black suit, like when Doomsday beat him within an inch of his life, and he used a black suit to concentrate the solar radiation to bring him back. They could have done that. I don't know. Like I said, we haven't seen it in the context of the film, so it's kind of hard to fully judge. But see, so now the pictures that I'm seeing of the suit now look much more form-fitting. They don't look like they're being, doesn't look like it's being baggy. It doesn't look like a whole bunch of things. So here I got another great pic of Cornsway in the suit. And once again, in this pic, it looks good. Okay. So let's share that. Look at that. You see that? I think that looks really good. What's wrong with that? So even with the lines, if it's more form-fitting and less loose and less cheap-looking, that's a much sharper look. Okay, so I really don't have a problem with that. So, like I said, all this stuff is grain of salt territory until we actually see the film. So those are my thoughts on those potential spoilers, and those are my thoughts on the stuff that's been leaked so far. Okay, but we have to see how it plays out on the screen. We have to see how it plays out in the film. We have to see how it plays out in context. Other spoilers that I read said that the movie doesn't really have a central plot. It doesn't have a plot through line, which if those spoilers we just read were true, that makes sense. It's a bunch of different scenes, kind of scene to scene, but it doesn't have a through line. But then again, if the through line is Lex trying to besmirch Superman's reputation and make the world hate him, that does seem to be kind of the core of the plot. So like I said, we have to take all this with a grain of salt. We have to see. So I want to know what you guys think. Okay. So again, this video was pre-recorded. I didn't do this live, so I didn't have a live chat. So put your comments down below and let me know what you think about this video, what you think about those spoilers, what you think about my commentary, and what it is that you want to see in the movie. Okay? Thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you next week, same time, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time for my next weekly live comics chat. DT2 Comics Chat out.